You asked for it, and I'm going to provide it. Dillon Loomis is back, and today we're going to break completely new ground when it comes to methods that Tesla might use to advertise. That's not the whole thing that we're going to handle in this next little bit, but I think you'll like it as well. Hit the like button again for Dillon Loomis if you'd like to get him invited back over and over again, and then subscribe and do all the rest of that stuff, including Dillon and I both do have Patreon channels, so please support us on Patreon. And now, Dillon Loomis. So Dillon Loomis is back. Hey, Dillon, glad to have you back. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me, Randy. I'm doing very well. Appreciate you asking.
So if you think that Dillon Loomis is a good guy to have on the channel, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notify, do all the things you know how to do. And then Dillon and I both have Patreon. It'd be great to sign up with his first. And then, if you've got a little money left over, hit mine. And then he's got an amazing, I called him, sent him an email the other day. I don't know if I should say this live, but his is the only YouTuber channel right now in the Elon Musk Tesla world that I still watch every single day. So there you go, Dillon.
Very high praise, Randy.
All right. Okay. So let's get into the meat of what we're going to discuss right now. It seems like there's a continuing debate about the issue of advertising or not advertising versus cutting margins and which is smarter, which is wiser, short-term, long-term. Dillon, I've been in advertising and marketing my entire life, which my entire life is a lot longer than your entire life, by I don't know, double? Something like that. Anyway, Dillon, what do you think about this whole advertising and the whole advertising question? What are you thinking about it?
Yeah, so just from a very high level to kick it off, I'll just say I can understand both sides of the argument. I honestly can. I've tried to steel man both sides before, and so I could go either way. But I think, again, it boils down to the nuance. So on one hand, you have the no advertising camp where every dollar goes to drive down the costs. Every dollar goes to make the product to make the best product that you can. And there is some pride level I can sense from Elon's standpoint that it's just a belief system that he has where advertising, at least in the traditional sense and at least in the auto world, is not either beneficial or like something he almost doesn't want to bow the knee to. I get that sense, but that's just my take on the situation. It would be really cool to say that you build the biggest car company on the planet without spending any money on advertising. I definitely don't think that's lost on Elon. So all of those are good arguments. It's tough to debate most of those. On the other hand, when it comes to advertising, let's say this, it's very clear that there's a huge cohort of at least the American population that doesn't know anything about Tesla. They don't know anything about the total cost of ownership. They don't know anything about all of the endless benefits that most people watching this video will already be familiar with. So it can also be true simultaneously that Tesla spending X amount, whether it's 10 million, 100 million, whatever number you pick, to do some targeted educational marketing advertising could be really beneficial, especially given their organic reach. If they just start using keywords properly and target certain demographics, which most people that aren't in online marketing aren't familiar with, but you and I both have backgrounds in that world. So there's just so much potential to target a certain demographic and start educating people on why over the full lifetime of a vehicle. Think simple, for example, most people probably have no idea how long a Tesla lasts. Okay, when it comes to, is it 150,000 miles? Is it 750,000 miles? Well, even if you run the numbers based on, we'll call it 200,000 miles. For a normal ICE car, that's kind of when it starts to break down. You have big repairs. Well, we're already getting early data back that Tesla vehicles can last well in excess of that number without needing any battery pack replacement, without needing anything major. Now, this isn't like a guarantee to happen, but just based on averages. So when you start to run the total cost of ownership numbers from a standpoint of you could have 2 lifetimes in one Tesla vehicle relative to a comparable ICE vehicle in terms of the length of ownership, the numbers look even crazier. So that's just one of many different things that I think more people should become aware of. Because at the end of the day, most people just think Teslas are still all over $100,000 and they're prohibitively expensive, when that's not the case. We have the Inflation Reduction Act. If you go on the street or in the mall and ask 10 people, what's the Inflation Reduction Act? Does Tesla get it? How much is it? I would venture to guess more than half of the people are going to have no clue. I could be wrong. I could be mistaken. But the point is, I do think there is some merit to educational advertising targeted, at least to try it. Again, I'm not necessarily saying I'm not saying Tesla is wrong or I disagree with how they're choosing to go, because again, they have more data than we do. However, what percentage of that decision is based on pride and wanting to have this narrative of Tesla's different, versus it being rooted in data? And that'll be the eternally burning debate, it sounds like.
Well, it's always fun when you agree with your guest. It's more interesting when there's a big, huge argument. But you said something. You said a couple of things in there that I've been talking about for the last, I don't know, at least 6 weeks, maybe longer. And that is the idea. The argument, the debate seems to be around: do you need a national television glitzy campaign, even if it's educational, which I think Gary Black and the rest would all say, yeah, educational, that's what they want. But you need a glitzy national campaign to do that educational thing? Or what about having a YouTube channel? What about, I'm putting out 2 YouTube videos a day. I think you're putting out 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. So I think Tesla somehow would be capable of putting out at least 1 YouTube video a week that would be totally classy and totally interesting. And maybe it would be an hour video, maybe it'd be a half-hour video. And then again, target it. My theory about targeting is the West Coast knows, Florida knows, New York knows. You don't need to talk to these people anymore. These people know, and they're telling their friends. I just took an hour-and-a-half trip across Los Angeles yesterday to go to my son's wedding, and there was just Teslas everywhere. There's almost always a Tesla in view. But that's not true in Old Wine, Iowa. It's not true in Poughkeepsie. I mean, these folks don't know anything at all about Tesla. So why not target it to keywords or concepts that would go to the flyover states where you're not seeing a Tesla in every driveway?
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And again, when it comes to the TV thing, I think when people hear advertising, they just immediately default to like cable television, and that's not the case. And granted, Tesla already has a great social media presence. Elon's the most followed account on Twitter. They have their YouTube channel. They have Instagram. They have all of us influencers, whatever you want to call us, creating content about Tesla. But the problem is our reach is only so much, because that's still like the Tesla bubble. Maybe not Elon's Twitter followers, but when it comes to marketing and targeting, you can do it on social media where all of the attention is, because it's true. I mean, this is a separate debate, but how valuable is traditional advertising on cable television? Personally, I would argue not very valuable, but some companies still do it. So you would think there's some ROI somewhere. Having said that, though, I think there are much better ways, especially for a tech forward company like Tesla, to run ads or do whatever to, again, target the people that aren't following the Tesla story. So in the Tesla bubble, we all think a certain way and just kind of assume that everybody thinks this way. So we need to step out of that bubble. And how you do that is with advertising and keywords, but it doesn't have to be cable television. It can be on social media. It's just actually getting that content in front of a new audience, basically.
It would probably be even more against Elon's, thinking, his philosophy of advertising, to have several TikTok videos up every day. but maybe he would be okay with YouTube Shorts and Instagram as opposed to TikTok. I mean, these are not hard things to do. Mm-hmm. Could you imagine what would happen, how you could blow up your YouTube channel if you had, say, a staff of 5 and maybe $1 million budget?
Oh yeah. And Yeah, it's funny you say that because so I've never spent a dollar on advertising any of my YouTube videos. And part of the goal was like to get to 100K without doing that because I wanted to be able to, in the future, help other people build an online business without having to spend massive amounts of money on advertising. So yeah, it's funny you should bring that up. But yeah.
Yeah, I do have a staff. I have a staff of 2 in the Philippines who do my editing and do my thumbnails because I can't draw a stick figure.
Same.
And so I have to have somebody that's got some graphic sense in order to do some of this stuff. But my budget is not that high. That's why I use the Philippines. But Elon and Tesla would have again, $1 million a year, a couple of $1 million a year, and a staff of 5. The amount of social media that they could put out with that and really go after key demographics in order to start stimulating sales. Another one would be the one that I've talked about for a long time is a few companies have used these college level influencers. So they go into a community and they even on the college campus, and they'll be letting people have rides in a Tesla car on a college campus. I think one of the ones that was years ago was some of these sports drinks, some of the power drinks. And they would have individuals walking around the campus pushing a cart. Well, can you imagine if you had, a location near a college campus where you were letting people take a plaid from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds? They'd be lined up. And you could do that in a Midwestern campus someplace, and people would be talking about that for months. So I think there's a lot of that kind of stuff that could be done that would cost little tiny bits of money that I'd like to see happening out there.
Yeah, no, it's true. And the real story is there are endless things that Tesla could do when it comes to influencers, celebrities, and getting Tesla vehicle, just getting more people exposed to a Tesla vehicle. There's still so many people that have never been in one. Even most of my friend group, they've never been in or at least never driven a Tesla. And I've talked, let's just say this, if you haven't been outside of the Tesla bubble lately or talked to somebody about Tesla, I would encourage anyone watching to do that and just start asking people like what they think about Tesla. And you'll learn very quickly, like people don't know what we think they know. So,
but it's worse than that. It's worse than that. I was at the wedding yesterday and I'm doing the very thing you're talking about. And people not only don't know, their misinformation and negative information is way higher than their positive information.
Yeah. Why do you think? I wonder why. It's because they get their information from media, and we know how that's biased. And so, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. I think one of the first questions I got asked yesterday was the very thing you brought up a minute ago, which is, well, how long will those batteries last? And I said, well, technically, 1 million miles. And they're like, 1 million miles? That's probably enough.
Right. Yeah. So ultimately for me, where I fall on this topic is I just default to trusting Tesla and their management to make the right decision based on the data that they have, because they have more real world data than potentially any other company outside of Elon's other ones. And that's a big deal. And there is something pure about being so laser focused on the product and just making the product and the service and the experience better, and funneling all the money toward that narrative. But again, I can be on either side, and I would actually like Tesla to take a small budget and just see what they can do with it. Because again, their organic reach, they could get those ads performing really well and make them very targeted. And yeah, it's just, no matter how many content creators there are for Tesla, like those videos are only going to go to people that are searching or interested in that already. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's a never ending debate.
So then you make another valid point, and all your points, of course, are valid when you, but anyway, this banner of data. Again, I think this was something that the entire community is missing. I think that the individuals who are worried about advertising or worried about lowering prices, and Elon brought it up specifically in the call, how much data they have. And I did a video on it, I don't know, 6 days ago, just before the earnings call. I have an Amazon business. The first thing I do every morning picture this old man getting up every morning and shipping product out of your laundry room to people all over the country. Because what? Because I make $150 an hour doing it. And so anyway, so I have this Amazon business. Well, my information, my data is minute by minute. I can literally look at my phone and see how many of these products, they're bicycle tire liners. I can see how many bicycle tire liners I sold in the last 15 minutes. And if I want to, I can go in and I can change my price right now. And then 15 minutes from now, I can change it again, and I can change it tonight. And it won't have the same kind of impact as Elon changing the prices, because the rest of the population has no idea that I changed the price. I can change it minute by minute, by hour, whatever I want to do, and then see what the impact is. See whether I get more sales or less sales. Well, Elon has that same opportunity, because they're getting they're basically not even getting a phone call. They're getting somebody going into the website, and then on the website, somebody said either they make the final decision to buy, or they leave the website and they don't make a purchase. And they can see what percentage of the people are leaving and what percentage of the people are buying, and they change the price. And if they can see within a week that more are staying and less are leaving, I mean, this stuff it's amazing. And no other automaker has that.
Right. And that's why it just feels like a principled decision from Tesla and Elon so far, that I think they know the benefits of advertising. And Elon owns Twitter. He's talked at length about they didn't have keyword targeting and it was such a mess. So he understands the value of it. It's not that he doesn't. And he's advertised before. He's advertised for Starlink, and he thought it made sense in that scenario. So it is somewhat of a mystery, because look, at the end of the day, if there's a time to advertise, it's right now. It's when demand is slowing. It's when interest rates are high. It's when there's a lot of uncertainty about everything in the market. It's when people are trying to save money. And if they go, even if they're interested in an electric vehicle and they start comparison shopping, they're going to see the sticker price and then think they're probably not going to have the education on the TCO aspect. And so, yeah, just knowing how little the public knows about Tesla, I'm actually starting to lean more toward Tesla should be doing some form of targeted educational advertising. And I know that'll probably upset some of the purists. I was one of those for a long time. But again, I think we have to be honest with ourselves and say that as things change, as circumstances change, as Tesla scales, to go from being driven by early adopters to what Tesla has been for a lot of its history now, to, as you said, if they're going to be adding millions of vehicles every year, to get into that next phase of the market on the S-curve on the way up, you may need a different strategy. I'm not saying they will, because again, with the next gen vehicle that in Cybertruck, I think the Cybertruck may serve as marketing, advertising for Tesla in an indirect way. Right. Because when those are on the roads, people are going to be like, what's that? It'll suck them into the Tesla sphere. And that's definitely going to serve as an attention grabber video, viral video type of thing. People will think maybe a little bit differently about Tesla. And so, yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts on it, but
actually, I think they should hire you and me as a team to run their marketing, because you just said something else that I've been thinking about for a week. And that is, as you're going down market, okay, you're no longer talking about early adopters. You're so smart. You're no longer talking early adopters. You're talking about the second level of people that are adopting. And you're also going down market to a group that has believed that no matter whether they like Teslas or not, they couldn't afford them. So that particular group needs advertising way more than the early adopters do. Mm-hmm. So there you go. Another point in your
right. And I mean, honestly, like, how many cool things does Tesla have that they can talk about? It's more than any other automaker, and it's not even close. I mean, It doesn't, like, it doesn't have to be just a random Tesla driving around some scenic place, and then at the end of the ad they say Tesla is something, little catchy tagline that, like, what is that doing? So yeah, I'm definitely not a fan of that form of advertising. But yeah, for Tesla just to educate people on their own 4680s, on structural pack, on the safety side of things, on how they use data and seatbelt pre-tensioning, and it's literally an endless list of even just the mission. Like, maybe why it's worth spending a couple extra $1,000 up front to support this sustainable movement, to be a part of a brighter future, a healthier future, a safer future. These things that most people just aren't thinking about, they're not worried about. But a big purchase like that, people, I think, are willing to do their research. Just kind of give them some content and have it, concise, educational type content, just talking about all of the cool stuff that Tesla does from an innovative manufacturing standpoint. It makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so here's the deal, Tesla. You need to get 5 people, 5-person staff, first year budget, 10 million at 5 people, and just do a daily YouTube, a really good one on all that subject matter that Dillon was just talking about. Give them a half an hour video every single day, and you will, with your capability, with the money that you could spend to promote the video every single day, you could get it to the point where you would be getting 1 million or maybe 1.5 million people per day watching these videos, and target it to the second level adopters. There you go. We've given them everything they could possibly need. And there's no other channel that you can watch that will give you this kind of information.
And it is true that there are, not to cut you off, but there are people in the demographic that have the money to buy a Tesla that don't. Now, it's true that some percentage of that group, doesn't matter what type of advertising or content you create, they don't want a Tesla. But I do think there is at least some in that group that just aren't educated well enough. And the social media content isn't enough, and it hasn't been enough to reach that group. So again, I don't want to be too hardline on this because I'm fine either way, to be frank. Whatever they do in the long run, I don't think it'll matter too much. But it will be interesting if they get to a point where it turns on, and I would be wondering what the last shoe to drop or what the catalyst would be for Tesla to change their stance will be, if anything. So.
All right. Well, Dillon, so thrilled to have you on again. And I hope that you guys will, if you have Elon's email, if you have his, if you can DM him directly, because you're one of the special people, would you send him a copy of this video? I think we've hit it out of the park here, Dillon.
Yeah.
So, and then for those of you who are watching, if you think this content was valuable, would you please hit the like button, because then it tells me that I should have Dillon back, and we could have another brainstorming session on how to make Tesla a better car company.
Sounds good to me.
All right. And then, of course, hit his Patreon, hit my Patreon, subscribe, like, do all the things you know how to do. And Dillon, thanks again.
My pleasure, Andy. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
And for those of you who are watching, it's been great talking to you.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.